It's been a busy couple of days in the eNASCAR and sim racing world, and that is only going to continue into the weeks to come. So hopefully we can get you all caught up as we look through the esports space, and we have a lot to talk about on today's show. We'll recap eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series action, as well as the Replacements 100 event, the iRacing Pro Invitational this weekend, as well as we'll touch base with some of the guys at the eNASCAR Heat Pro League. But first, I want to say hello to everybody. My name's Evan Posocco. You'll see me Tuesday nights on the broadcast for our Coke Series, also joined by one of our Coca-Cola iRacing Series co-team owners in Parker Kligerman. Parker, it has been a whirlwind of what has been a week, but honestly, it feels like it's been a month, and esports and sim racing is really buzzing right now.
No doubt. I'm actually pretty tired at this point as it's almost Friday, because I feel like every second there's a new race and there's a race we're talking about. And, it's just been crazy the amount of people reaching out from the industry, from NASCAR, from all the different motorsports out there that are paying attention to what we're doing in eNASCAR. So it's cool to have the spotlight. Obviously, we'd be remiss without saying, it's come with some unfortunate circumstances. But, it's definitely been cool to see it get that spotlight and see all of eNASCAR rise up and put on a great show.
And we'll talk about everything that's been going on. A lot of the eNASCAR sanctioned events have been happening even leading up before this hiatus of on-track action. But I guess we could get things kicked off. We'll have special guests as we go through. But let's start with what happened this past Tuesday night. The drivers of the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series took to the track for their third race of the 2020 campaign. Parker, this is the series that you have a team in, co-owned with Jeff Burton. 40 drivers, the top 40 sim racers in the world competing on the iRacing service. It was a good race early on the calendar for the first time. This race had been the finale every year since 2011.
It was a good race. It was cool, to see, how the drivers managed their tires throughout the run. We actually saw some blown tires for the first time in an eNASCAR race, so that was pretty interesting. And it just seemed like, as always in eNASCAR races, there's that untimely caution where the field gets all jumbled up and the fastest cars somehow find themselves middle of the pack and having to navigate themselves through. An eventual winner, Ryan Luza, did a great job of doing that. Our driver, Logan Clampett, did a great job. It was pretty touch and go there through the middle portion of the race, kind of wondering, are they going to make it through the traffic, and is there going to be other issues? And then it was a long green flag run to the end, and you're always thinking, okay, here comes that caution, that inevitable caution to end it. Maybe we'd get a green-white checker, but it wasn't there, and obviously Ryan Luza just had the field on lock, and he drove a great race to win it.
Yeah, he was able to pull away late in that one, and it was really bracing to not get that late race caution. With 3 weeks down now, though, in this championship, we've seen 3 different race winners. Keegan Leahy won that season opener at Daytona early in February. He drives for Denny Hamlin Racing. And then your driver, Ashton Crowder, a couple weeks back in Fontana, took home the win. And then, of course, Ryan getting the win just this past Tuesday. So 3 different race winners in the opening 3 weeks. The biggest thing with this series, it does come down to the setups and the drivers to really make the difference in this championship.
It does. And I think not a lot of people realize the amount of effort and time that goes into building those setups. When all the cars are so identical, it really comes down to one, the driver, and then the setup underneath that car. And the driver really gelling that setup. So they just have to do thousands of laps of testing, hours upon hours behind the sim and trying to develop those setups. And so it's I know, when it doesn't go right, it can be devastating, just like in real life. When you put all that effort into a race car and it doesn't go your way, you're absolutely devastated. But when it does, it makes the elation all that much higher because you've put so much effort into it. And these guys, they're the best in the world for a reason, but they also treat this like a job, and they're always fine-tuning their craft. And it's really evident as you see the level of competition just continually get higher. And you see cars that run right at the front 1 week, and the next week they're running back in the 30s, because you have to constantly be innovating, constantly getting better to be challenging for that eNASCAR championship.
That race from Homestead on Tuesday saw 280,000 viewers tune in, representing more than 1 million minutes of watch time. So let's take a look at a recap of all the action from Tuesday's eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series race from Homestead.
The iRacing Esports Network pace car down and in. It is Keegan Leahy's field to control as we say, let's go racing from Homestead. Round 3 of the 2020 Coke Series is green, and we're already blocking to turn 1 as Alfala tries to keep Luza behind him. out of turn number 2. It is the 55 of Kane Cook, his Ford Mustang. Wrong way around at a turn 2. And it looks like that this may have been a bit of calamity. It looks like at least 3 or 4 cars got a piece of the contact.
Ryan Luza is poking the nose up the inside of the 83 as they come off of turn 4, but can't quite get there. Is Ryan Luza. Bobby Zielinski able to just hold on. Let's try 1 and 2 this time. Go up to the point. A little bit of a slide from Bobby on the turn in. That's going to make him nose to nose. Push it up the racetrack. Goes the 83 as Ryan Luza starts to nose ahead. They're still even as they work down the back.
I mean, he parked it on his left rear quarter panel on the front straightaway, and they just about doored each other off of turn number 2. This is the fight for the race lead. Will it be a pass for the race win? Luza on the inside. Yes, sir. Lap 105. Final time at a turn 4, and for the 13th time in his career, Luza a winner in the Coca-Cola iRacing Series. He gets it done tonight at Homestead.
And with that race win, Ryan Luza picked up his 13th of his career in the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series. And we are happy to be joined now by the driver for Williams Esports. Ryan, congratulations on the win on Tuesday night. As mentioned, no stranger for you to be in victory lane and to be in victory lane early in the season. Every year in competition, you've won one of the first 3 races of the year. It happens again this Tuesday. Just tell us about your race.
Coming in, we knew clean air was king. It was worth probably at least a 10th a lap, and you needed to get clean air. We didn't qualify on pole, but we qualified up front, which was good. In the first run, I just wanted to stay close to Keegan, but it's kind of impossible. And we ended up sitting about 1.5 seconds back with the exact same speed. I thought we had the better car. I just knew I needed to get in front of him. So I just wanted to short pit him by 1 lap. That's all I knew I needed to do. He had the first stall, so that means he's not coming out of pit road at 50 mile an hour. So he loses a ton of time getting back up to speed. So we timed the stop right. We beat him by a lap and came out with the lead. And I wanted to go green from there. But of course we always get that mid-race caution that jumbles everything up. And we just needed to keep the track position. I hated coming out 10th. I was 10th, Clampett was 11th, Keegan was 12th, and I knew it was going to be super hard to get through the field, and it took way longer than I thought. It took us like 35 laps to get through there, so just happy it stayed green and we could kind of stretch that gap.
Were you ever worried about the tire wear and being so far back in the field when you guys came out? I know those other guys were on older tires, but one thing we know about iRacing is protecting those tires is so important. That's how you're fast over the long run. Were you worried back in that traffic as it took you a while to get through? You were like, uh-oh, I might not make it through all these guys?
I wasn't really worried until I got to Bobby. Bobby was saving until I got there. And when I got there, he was driving it in car length deeper. I couldn't get the run off. And I was just like, man, I need to get by him because I was burning my tires up. And I knew Clampett was just kind of sitting back there. I didn't know how hard he was pushing or not. So I thought I was burning everything up getting by Bobby. But once I got by him, for some reason, the car drove perfectly. And we just kind of checked out. So I guess burning off the right front was a little bit of a help because we were pretty loose the beginning of the race.
You mentioned all the other things you paid attention to, like talking about how Keegan Leahy was in that first pit stall so he wouldn't accelerate out of pit road as fast. I mean, how about all that other stuff? You mentioned the time just trying to make the setup faster, but like what goes into all the other sides of this, pitch strategy, all those things? Who helps you with that? How do you figure out all that out going into a race and managing that in the race?
Yeah, it's a lot of work. It's not just me. It's my teammates. We have spreadsheets, just like I'm sure the NASCAR teams do. We put in our times. We do a full fuel run, and then we have some calculations to figure out how many stops is fastest. And we knew 2 stops would probably be best. And we're talking about short pitting Keegan. It's impossible because you never know when he's going to pit. And he's expecting me to short pit him. So it's like I came in 3 laps early than was ideal, just trying to make sure I got him. And we kept it out of the barrels and beat him out of pit road. And that's what won the race because I never lost that track position of the cars with the best tires.
You mentioned 2017. I'd be remiss to not mention that, of course, winner of the championship in the Coca-Cola iRacing Series back then. But, through the different cars, as we've kept up to date with the NASCAR Series Cup cars and the rules packages and the teams and everything that has changed with this championship over these last 4 years now, for you to be a constant front runner in this series, what do you think that says about your ability to adapt to an ever-changing environment?
I don't know. I don't like to toot my own horn too much, but we put in a lot of work. Last year we struggled a lot. Like you said, it's been like close to a year since my last win. And the package we had last year was a big struggle. We were all packed up. It was hard to find an advantage, and we missed out on setups. I think Keegan had the field covered for the majority of the races, and we just couldn't find whatever it was. But this year we started off strong again, like we had the previous year and the years before. So we just got to stay on the ball and find the speed. We can't be happy with what we found at Homestead. We have to keep getting faster every race because the whole field will.
And you're now 10th in points, so obviously we know there's a playoff format in iRacing, the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series. What's it going to take to get in the playoffs, and do you feel like, is it more consistency? Do you have to go out and win? And one other portion of this is, we mentioned how long you've been in the series, being a champ. Have you noticed the talent level and the competition level going up as the series has got more popular?
I'd say it has, for sure. A lot of the guys that were fast back in the day are back now. Because it's getting bigger, and everyone who's fell out and got kind of burned out, a lot of them are trying to race back in through pro and road to pro and stuff like that. So it's going to keep going up with the prize money and everything going up. It's for sure getting a lot tougher to say. I think you can see, I'm not going to throw Ray under the bus, but Ray's really struggled, and he's a 4-time champion, and it's you have to stay on top of it.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, there's 17 races to go on the year, Ryan, so I know that there is a lot of work still to do. But again, congratulations on the win Tuesday night. And we'll catch you in 2 weeks' time at the end of the month here, March 31st. We go racing from the virtual Bristol Motor Speedway. But thanks for chatting, and congrats.
Thanks, Evan. Thanks, guys.
Congrats, bud.
That 13th win for Ryan Luza, the driver for Williams Esports, put him, Parker, third on the all-time wins list. He continues to climb up the running order. And I did want to touch on one thing that he mentioned there before we continue to move on, the fact that you have drivers going through the Pro Series and whatnot. Not to get too much into the butt on this, because there is a lot involved in sim racing that a casual viewer may not know. But basically, of these 40 drivers, there's some 110,000 people on iRacing. Top 40 are the only drivers to make it to this series. A NASCAR Cup Series driver can't hop on and get an invite in. Everybody has to qualify. At the end of the season, if you're not top 20, you get relegated down to the top 20 from the road to pro. So there is no contracts. There is no guarantee year to year. If you do not perform, you're going home. And it makes it quite cutthroat.
It is, and I know it's really stressful for the drivers, and for us on the team side, we're always watching sort of where our drivers are in the points, just thinking about what the next year is going to look like. We're also been looking at the Road to Pro Series because you're looking at that thinking if one of your drivers is falling out, another driver might emerge that actually makes it, and your driver that you had the last season doesn't. So it's an ever-changing field, but I think that's what makes it all the more impressive when you see guys like Ryan Luza, or Ray Alfala, or Keegan Leahy, or Logan Clampett, who are continually in the series for years on end, or they're part of the top 20 no matter how bad their season goes. And they find, even for Ray, who fell out last year, had to find his way back in. I mean, that's really hard to do. So the competition level is constantly going up as the prize money has risen, the exposure has risen. It's obvious that there's more people trying to get into it. And I hope one day, we're talking about hundreds of thousands trying to get into that top 40. There's, as you mentioned, there's over 110,000 people on iRacing, and hopefully we can continue to bump that number up and get more people interested in wanting to be in that eNASCAR and try and qualify for this series. Because I think if you're 16 years old or you're 60, you can make it to the eNASCAR series if you're good enough for a nominal fee. So I hope more people get interested in it, and we see more names than ever trying to make it.
Yeah, a lot of the time, and iRacing is still a great hobby, but I think the drivers that are in that series now, when they started, it was kind of solely a hobby. But the way that the series is now grown is you'll have people signing up for iRacing and trying to sim race with the objective of getting into a series like this, because this series has been around since 2010, but obviously it has grown exponentially, and the prize money with that over the last few years. If you think the competition's tough now, where are we going to be 5-10 years down the road?
There's no telling. All I know is that's a pretty big number right now, especially even in the esports world, to have $300,000 on offer. I would love a chance, to be 10 years ago and racing for $300,000. So that was a lot more money. That's a lot more money than I had the first years of my real racing career. So I think it's a pretty cool thing. And if that continues to grow and more people see it, and we talked about the viewership numbers, 280,000 people tuning in, that's just going to get more eyes on it, more people interested, and hopefully, telling their friends and family about it, and the word spreads and hopefully more people will be involved. So I think there's the future is very bright for eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series, and you're seeing all the support from teams and sponsors because of that. So let's see where it goes, but I'm looking forward to it.
And Parker, you mentioned the word of mouth. One of the really cool things that has happened over the past week was the Replacements 100, a totally community-based event. It kind of got started when Kevin Hamlin and TJ Majors got together on Twitter, started communicating with a lot of the real-life NASCAR drivers, and they put on an exhibition race. Keep in mind that we didn't find out we weren't going to be racing in Atlanta till a few days before Sunday afternoon, and there was a sim race scheduled for that Sunday. We saw a handful of real-life drivers competing in it, and it was really an incredible event that came out of, again, just social engagement and people getting together on Twitter that actually ended up being one of the highest live streamed events viewership-wise for an iRacing event in history.
Yeah, that was really cool, and thanks for TJ and Kevin putting together. It was a cool event because, as you said, it was real grassroots. It wasn't, a whole lot of planning or setup, and it came together so quick, and there was so much of the NASCAR industry that, like, the second we knew Atlanta wasn't happening, everyone got together and said, all right, we got to do something on iRacing. So that was cool to see come together. I had fun racing in it. I wish my computer didn't decide to crash midway through when I was running second. So I had, thankfully, a reset, was able to drive back to the field, finish fifth. But that was just a really fun event, and I think there's intentions to do more of them. So it was as successful as you said, and hopefully it becomes something that sort of grows into something bigger going forward.
Yeah, really something that can only happen in this kind of digital age is for a big event like that to just kind of come out of people talking with each other. And it happened in so little time as well. You mentioned that, you had a good run at it until the problem set you back. You still got a top 5 result. It was Josh Williams who ended up winning that race. He's the Cup Series spotter. He dealt William Byron, who has got a storied history as well as far as him competing and being a member on iRacing. But it really was a crazy race. Cup cars out at Atlanta, some cautions, restarts, and it's not like everybody who drives with each other. It was a combination, spotters and drivers and community members as well. Just kind of get tossed into it and fly by the seat of your pants. It looked like a ton of fun, certainly.
Yeah, I just wish I beat William Byron because he's like my arch rival whenever I go into a host or a regular race in iRacing. Every time I feel like I do an A-class race, he's in it, and I'm like, oh, man, I got to beat William Byron. Damn. So when I saw him in there, I'd actually beaten him in a fixed race about a day or two earlier, so I was like, all right, I know I can beat him. And we were racing together there for most of the race, and then I had the computer issues, had to drive back to the field. I never got back to him, but he's definitely, we talk about, big events. There's one coming up that I'm sure we're going to talk about here soon, but he's definitely probably the top of the real drivers out there in terms of speed on the service. And so if you can beat William Byron, you're definitely in really good company.
Yeah, big shout out to everybody who made that event possible, as well as our friends over with Podium Esports for broadcasting it. And while the community was busy getting together to work on some things, NASCAR and iRacing heavy at work as well in the back end, officially announcing that the eNASCAR iRacing Pro Invitational Series is coming back. Now, these are events that we have had throughout the years. We used to have an annual, Pro Race of Champions, and back in 2017, it was almost a bi-weekly occurrence with NASCAR night. We've seen drivers like Christian Atkins, Ben Kennedy, Ty Majeski, Mike Snyder. You even won one, Dover, in the Xfinity cars a couple of years ago. So it's no stranger with NASCAR and iRacing teaming up to get real-life drivers onto the sim to compete in an event. But this upcoming Sunday, it is going to be bigger than we have ever seen before, as we're going to go racing on FS1 and kind of fill that void of the lack of a race weekend.
It is. This is going to be huge. So this Pro Invitational is probably bigger than anything we've ever tried to do, which is it's going to be on FS1. It's all real drivers. So Cup Series, Xfinity Series, Truck Series, Dale Jr., so retired drivers, myself. Maybe we'll even hear from a guy who's driven a little bit, but he's also doing the TV thing, and maybe he'll sneak into the race as well. But I think it's just going to be an incredible event, and so many, it was almost like the Replacements 100, the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series were almost like primers for what's about to happen on Sunday. And on NBCSN, we've put iRacing on TV in terms of the eNASCAR Series, but doing this with all the real drivers to replace the real race is just going to be incredible.
Looks like it'll be at least a 35-car field. You mentioned, of course, Dale Jr. I know Bobby Labonte, Kyle Busch, Brad Keselowski, Joey Logano, Denny Hamlin, Chase Elliott. that's just the start of a 35-driver-long list, drivers from Cup, Xfinity, and the Truck Series competing. And it is interesting because we've been talking with Ryan about the Coca-Cola iRacing Series. There's kind of two different roads here. You do have the professional iRacing drivers, essentially, who compete for the prizes. And then you do have this route where we're taking the real-life drivers and onto the sim. A lot of the time, a handful of those very drivers, yourself included, use iRacing as a training tool, but it can also be used for fun like this, as we kind of can kick back and enjoy ourselves on Sunday, not quite as serious.
Yeah, it is. It's definitely, there's something to take from it always, but the reason primarily that you see so many real-life drivers using iRacing is for fun. And let's be honest, it's just fun to be able to go and race at a high level in something that's so realistic from the, comfort of your home. And so you see guys like William Byron and others out there, and Ty Majeski and Garrett Smithley, myself, that we just like to race. So Bubba Wallace is doing it all the time. So it's just why we do it. And it's why it's cool to see it being put on such a big stage, because it's just something that we enjoy doing anyway. So now that it's on a big stage, it's going to be all the better.
It'll be this Sunday, 1:30 Eastern time on FS1. We'll have Jeff Gordon, Mike Joy, Larry McReynolds on the call for that one. And speaking of special guests, happy to bring another guest into the conversation here with us from Fox Sports, Regan Smith. Regan, thanks for giving us a little bit of time to chat iRacing. There's been a lot going on behind the scenes these last few days. And like we said, majority of the drivers going to be competing in this event are no strangers to the sim at all. But it is certainly going to be a great event for FS1 to be a part of.
I agree, Evan. A lot of pieces and a lot of things came together very quick to make this happen, and it's going to be cool to see. Let's be honest right now. There's no sports out there anywhere, and people love live entertainment. They love competition. They love, whether it's racing or baseball or whatever it may be, they love that live event. And this will be the first, in my eyes, other than maybe wrestling, which is also on Fox, it'll be the first live event that we get to really consume and get to watch and get to be a part of in quite some time. What seems like an eternity. I know it's only been about a week roughly right now, but definitely going to be an exciting moment.
I've had numerous drivers reach out to me who are like, hey, man, I'm going to do this iRace thing. How hard is it? And I'm like, well, you drive race cars. Like, what do you expect? It's like a race car on a computer. And, even one who is a two-time champion now. But the thing I think you'll find funny, and I don't know if it'll surprise you, this certain driver literally went back and watched old YouTube videos of iRaces to get to do film prep like we do in real life, and called me and asked all these questions and was going to practice today. So I think there's many drivers who haven't done it for a while or have only dabbled, but they're taking this very seriously because, hey, it's a competition. They don't want to look bad, right?
I was going to say, we're all the same, right? If there's a competition, if there's a race to be won, you don't want to go out there and look like a fool. So some of the videos and some of the things I've seen posted on Twitter already of guys prepping, getting ready for it, some of the iRacing rigs that they're involved with. And this is what I say, my favorite part about iRacing, you can have somebody in this just completely decked out, crazy rig that's incredibly expensive, and you can have somebody on a desktop with basically a steering wheel and a set of pedals on their normal laptop computer. You know what? iRacing doesn't know any different. Whoever's better is going to be better. The equipment, from what I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but it basically, you can win with anything. And that's the beauty of this. You can win with $100 setup, and you can win with a $1,000 setup, or whatever the numbers are.
Yeah, I think Ty Majeski still runs with the steering wheel set up in the laptop, whereas you've got some guys who've got the big triple screens and the motion rig. I mean, you could go the barrier of entry to get into iRacing, if you're somebody at home or if you're a NASCAR driver, you can start basic, but you can go way up. I mean, it really is a world of possibilities.
You definitely can. And actually, the thing I'll say about some of these drivers that are in this is they're all kind of going to different sims around. So like maybe their buddy has one, or they just ordered a brand new one and it's arriving right now, or you have some drivers going to places where there's sims. So this is going to be really interesting for them all to be in different sims and maybe not even their own sim.
Yeah, some rentals as well. I mean, you mentioned the short notice on this one, Regan. I mean, a lot of the drivers they're committed. They want to be a part of it. And it is going to be a really fun event for this virtual Dixie Vodka 150 at Homestead Miami Speedway. Again, it is this Sunday afternoon on Fox. And like I said, we've been talking about all the different events that have happened so far. This is kind of the pinnacle of this week, not just in sim racing, maybe not even just in NASCAR, but I think in esports it's going to be a really huge event.
Yeah, definitely a huge event. And how about the guys that are producing the sim rigs right now? They got to be working overtime, man. The hook. Every driver in the country is calling them, and this is one of those moments, right? Nobody saw it coming, nobody imagined it. Obviously, the iRacing thing has been building, but this is one of those moments now that can really take a sport and take it to a whole nother level, which is gonna be cool to see.
All right, so I got one last important question. Larry Mack doing iRacing pitch strategy. What are the odds he calls it right? What do you think?
Oh, that is a great question. I feel like at least in iRacing, right, it's pretty cut dry. We don't have all these computer systems running like which lap to pit on to make up this amount of time or anything like that. That's the challenge for anybody right now. In particular, Larry Mack, is these guys have these complicated systems that they're running, this artificial intelligence that they're using to predict when they need to pit and when they don't. From what I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, pretty much everybody's going to pit within a 2 or 3 window. So that should help out a little bit.
Yeah, you're definitely right on that. They should probably try to just short pit each other a little bit, or we're just going to end up all pitting at the same time. And who knows, there'll probably be enough cautions we won't have to ever do any green flag stops, but hopefully not.
Well, we're looking forward to the event. Again, it is this Sunday at 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time on FS1. But Regan, appreciate you giving us a moment to chat, and we'll see how it goes.
Guys, looking forward to it. It'll be a fun event. Thanks for having me. And Sunday, I know everybody's going to be watching. It's going to be exciting.
We've been spending a lot of time talking about the iRacing side of the eNASCAR world, Parker, and let's transition now over to the console side with the eNASCAR Heat Pro League, which of course made its debut last season and is going to be returning for the 2020 campaign. They just had some preseason racing earlier in this week. We saw Brandon Hanna win in the PS4 race and Daniel Brafuccio in the Xbox race as they get set to kick things up a notch. So again, if this eNASCAR space is new to you, iRacing and the Heat Pro League, there's so much kind of content and only more of that's going to be coming out in the next few weeks.
No doubt, and it's cool. The Heat Pro League is more for anyone to kind of join into it, right? Because it's on the console, which a lot of people have consoles. They might not have a gaming rig, but they've got a console on Xbox or PS4 that they can go play NASCAR Heat on and then eventually get into this Pro League. So it's been really cool to see it, sort of get more popular as well, and to see these drivers eventually get signed to real teams and, these players, I guess, in some respects, get signed to real teams and see them sort of start to be put on a pedestal per se with that NASCAR Heat Pro League.
The big thing that we note about esports is that, that layer of entry to be able to get in and participate. We talked about the basic iRacing setup, still a couple $100 to get a wheel and pedals together in a desktop. But if you have a console, $60 for the game, and you can start your console racing career. And it is not just that very bottom, because as you mentioned with the Heat Pro League, there are now pro racers on the console side, and we're happy to be joined by one now as another one of our special guests. We are with Joey Stone. If you tuned into the series, you know him better as Sloppy Joe, who is the driver for ERCR in the eNASCAR Heat Pro League. And just announced this week, Joey, that you'll be returning to ERCR for second season. So congrats on that.
Well, thank you so much. It's a privilege to be back with the ERCR family. A lot of great people over there, and I'm really excited to get things rolling, hopefully get their first championship in eNASCAR history for them. But yeah, I'm really excited to get things rolling here. Thank you for having me on.
So, Joey, I'm always curious, especially for a guy like in your position there, were you always into NASCAR? Were you always into motorsports, or did this kind of come about because you were maybe playing the game? How did you get into being a part of the eNASCAR Heat Pro League?
Well, I've been a huge NASCAR fan my entire life. The first race I ever went to, Spring Atlanta Race 2001. I think you all know that finish. That was a great way to get into the sport. I think I was only about like 5 years old at that time. And since I was just hooked on it, played the games growing up, the classic days of going backwards and wrecking the field, seeing all the crazy crashes, and now being at that professional level. Don't know where it came from, if that was my background, but just went to that professional level, started racing some leagues in the older PlayStation 3 days. And as the PS4 came along, and now that motorsport makes the NASCAR games, they started doing esports. And I kind of told myself, I think this is my only opportunity I'm going to have to pursue that racing dream, because we didn't really have that income that I really wish we had to pursue my racing career. It's something my parents always wanted for me, but it just never was there. And I saw this as my one opportunity, and I just put a lot of work into it, and it all just kind of came about. And when my name was called last year at the inaugural draft, it was just so surreal. And since then, it's just been an incredible ride, and I'm just looking forward for it to keep going for years to come.
So if I remember correctly, that's the race that Kevin Harvick won in for Dale Earnhardt after obviously he passed away. Now you're driving for the same team you saw win that time. What does it mean to you to be at RCR and be connected to that team that you watched that first race?
Well, I'll just say this. I won't say any names, but they'd be mad if I told them who I was rooting for that day if it came down to the finish. I got old pictures of me and all my old rainbow gear and everything from my first race, and it's just crazy how sports works like that and how everything just comes back in full circle. First race ever. My guy gets beat by the team that I'm now racing for. Everything happens for a reason. I think I should have been rooting for Harvick that day, but you always go back and watch that race, and an instant classic, like you said, Parker. It's an instant classic, and just how everything comes back full circle is just so surreal for sure.
So the iRacing stuff's been around, since 2010, but this Heat Pro League is newer to the eNASCAR sphere. So even, some people who casually watch, this sim racing stuff, they may not be able to immediately tell the difference between iRacing and between eNASCAR Heat. So just tell us about the series, how you got qualified into it. You mentioned hearing your name called in the draft last year, and just kind of what this Heat Pro League is for somebody who may not be as familiar.
There's a lot of differences. There's no doubt about that. But I think at the end of the day, we got to work as one when it comes to growing eNASCAR. At times like this, when people are out, they can't go out and have their daily lives. It's our job to go out there and provide them the entertainment that they deserve. And I think this is a great opportunity for iRacing and NASCAR Heat to work together to grow that audience, even despite the differences that they may have when it comes to the racing.
Really well said. I love that.
And no matter what division of eNASCAR you're watching, if you're watching iRacing or if you're watching the Heat Pro League, you can watch it. As soon as the race is done, hop on and do it yourself in either case. So it's all about getting, a younger audience and as many people interested in eNASCAR, and I think therefore after in NASCAR, through both working together. I did pick up, you said that one of the things that you liked about the Heat Pro League was that you had access to better drivers, so you could always learn. And it was just announced this week as well that NASCAR Heat is hosting a $10,000 exhibition race also this Sunday. It's open to anybody. It's going to be at 2:00 Eastern time this Sunday on the NASCAR Heat channels. And there are going to be some special guests racing against anybody else who wants to compete in. So that's another super cool event, Joey, that's on the calendar for this week.
Yeah, it's really cool. Honestly, it kind of caught me off guard. I wasn't expecting it. We got the preseason rolling like you were talking about earlier, and they just kind of dropped this out of nowhere. We're on a roll right now. We got some good stuff rolling, going for us as the NASCAR Heat Pro League continues on to season 2, starting just here in a little bit. But I've been putting some runs in, just making sure that we're good to go. And it's really competitive. Let me tell you what, the way it's going right now, you got to save just enough fuel to get that full run at Homestead. The tires are wearing a lot. You got to make sure your car's not loose off exit, and everyone is so close. And it's crazy. I put about 20 runs in. I'll admit, tempers flared a little bit because you want to get in that top 24 and go for the big bucks, and that's what it's all about. But regardless, though, it's going to be a great event, and if you want to participate in it, get yourself a copy of NASCAR Heat, get online, look for that Pro League lobby there, hop on in and see if you got what it takes.
Well, between the exhibition race this upcoming Sunday, of course, more preseason, and then into the regular season, Joey, you're certainly going to be busy, of course, streaming and all the other things that you do to keep busy. But we really appreciate you giving us some time here to chat. Best of luck in the Heat Pro League for 2020.
Well, yeah, guys, thank you so much for having me. If you want to stay tuned with all of the NASCAR Heat stuff coming up, just make sure to follow them on Twitch, 704 NASCAR Heat, and on Facebook at NASCAR Heat as well.
Thanks,
With that, once again, driver for ERCR, Joey Stone. You might know him as Sloppy Joe, as he'll be competing in the 2020 eNASCAR Heat Pro League. And Parker, I don't want to say that's it, because if we talked about everything happening in sim racing and esports, we'd be here for hours. But that's all we have time for now. It has been, of course, a whirlwind of 7-8 or so days now with the cancellation and postponement of all on-track action, not just in NASCAR, but all major sports. And this eNASCAR space has been growing as is over the last few years. But certainly now that it is the fix for somebody that wants to get some NASCAR action in over the next couple of weeks. It is going to be exciting through the Pro League, through the Coca-Cola iRacing Series, and as well Sunday's special event.
Yeah, it's been an insane week. Obviously, there's been a ton of racing. About to go ahead and do a race right now. So trying to do as much as I can before that race on Sunday. But hopefully the fans out there that have tuned in for the first time to see some of this iRacing see the Heat Pro League, enjoy it, and continue to come back and maybe find themselves thinking, hey, I want to be there. I want to do that. Well, guess what? You can just get started. So hopefully you enjoyed this, and we'll do more of them in the future.
You can make sure that you don't miss out on anything in eNASCAR by logging on to eNASCAR.com for the latest news. Also, just be following NASCAR social handles as well as NASCAR Heat and iRacing for more. But we look forward and hope that you all tune in. It is this Sunday, the big event, 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time on FS1 for the eNASCAR iRacing Pro Invitational. We'll see you then for the virtual Homestead Miami Speedway.